Higher ground. The woman sat at the summit, sheltering the child in her arms from the driving rain. Her hands and feet were bloody from the frantic climb, gashes across her arms and legs where she had slipped on the jagged stones. And now, it had been for nothing. For 2 days the waters had risen. The waves sent a fine spray across her as the raging water crashed against what was now little more than a rocky outcrop. She tried not to think about the village which had sat in the valley below. She wanted to forget seeing the people fleeing as the river burst its banks, engulfing the men at its edges, feverishly reinforcing the levees. Her husband had been among them. So had her eldest son. Though most of the boats in the village had been swamped by the flood, a few had remained afloat. But there were too few boats and too many people. From her vantage point on the hill where she had been walking, she had watched them go under, one by one. Those boats where the people on board had tried to rescue others went down first. The men who had beaten away the drowning survivors reaching out for help had lasted longer. Lightning arced across the sky, and a crash of thunder set the child screaming again. She wept as she stroked the girl's head, holding her tighter. The woman looked down, her voice a frantic whisper, pleading for deliverance to any who might listen. The only answer was the roar of the waves. Still holding the weakly whimpering child in one arm, she reached down with a hand to her swollen belly. Beneath her skin, she felt a tiny movement. For now, the life growing within her still held on. She knew her sins were many. She had caused pain to others, spoken harshly to her parents, even lusted after men besides her husband. If the sentence for her crimes was death, then so be it. But not for her children. When she thought of them, there was only fury, violence in her heart for a world where their lives would be snatched away so callously. The spray from the waves was getting thicker now. She would hold on until the last moment. She was ready to meet her maker, but she would give her children every moment of life that she could. They deserved it, no matter what the heavens decreed. She raised her head and scanned the horizon through the downpour. Wiping the rain from her eyes, she fixed her gaze on an object in the distance, tossed on the turbulent waters. It was unmistakable. The villagers had seen it before, mocked the very notion of such a thing. Its scale alone had been absurd. 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits deep. She watched the bobbing shape until it faded into the wall of falling water. Then she lowered her head and rocked her child as the waters crept higher.